Give me, yeah, we are live.
All right. Okay, I'm just opening the agenda for today. So nice to see Prerna back.
Thank you.
We haven't seen each other for a while. Hope you're well. And,
yes, very much. Thanks.
Yeah.
I haven't received the agenda.
Sorry?
It's on the email.
The one that you just sent.
Yeah, on the
an hour
alert.
back.
On the alert. Last
okay,
email.
the digest. Business cards, content, editorial, copyright policies.
Never mind, Andrea will run you through it.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. So point number one, I've been working over the past couple of weeks on the revision of all the BIBLIO entries. Mostly, I've done most of them, so they are 98% done in the sense that something remains to be done always. But basically, I've changed all the images, so they are all top quality that we could reach from fetching them from the web. I've shortened titles most of the time, just taking away, just keeping the title and deleting authors, year of publication, and that sort of information, which remains in the main text. And not for all of them, but for some, I've checked the links. Some were obsolete. I've changed them. In some cases, in 2 instances, there were double entries. So I deleted one of the 2, and that's it. So I think we have a fully working proper version of planthro BIBLIO. But of course, if you spot any errors, you should definitely amend them. So that's point number one.
Sorry, yeah, I confirm that everything that I see is quite high quality. But yes, we should point it out on a quick WhatsApp message to me or an email. Don't hesitate. Just write what you see as wrong. Prerna, at this point, would you like to point out the discrepancy? We resolved a few days back with a colon and whatnot. No, quotes, I think.
Yeah, I think it was with the semicolon probably, and the gap, the spacing that we had left. So I will have to review what it was, but it got resolved. So
right. So Andrea,
I think the main.
Yeah, this was one of the posts that Prerna had made. I think there was a semicolon, or I don't particularly remember. Maybe a double quote, which our template did not like very much. So just be aware that sometimes if there is a special character in the title, you might not see the entry properly. So don't be alarmed. Try whatever you must. But if it fails, then check for the special characters in the title.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I could jump to number 4 before moving on to Vito. So we keep things to what is going on. So one idea I had would be to, if we can increase slightly the number of entries that we do until the end of the year. I'm calculating if each editor manages 50 entries by the end of the year, we will be through with the list, with the edit log that we have at the moment. And I'm saying that because then we could move on to the next step, which would be to, it's to be discussed, but the proposition would be to have each editor specializing on an area, say a continent, or I've said in point 5 of the agenda, but we can jump there. So establishment of geographic coverage for each editors. So, for example, I said Africa, Asia, Southeast Asia, Europe, North America, South America, Oceania. So that each editor would be in charge of, once we have completed the current list, will be in charge of a specific region, which of course doesn't mean that editors are are secluded in that region. Of course, anyone can post anything from other regions as well, but it would be good to specialize, because I have the feeling, and that's because of is the bias of being me the only one choosing the choosing most of the entries at the moment. Of course, I'm biased by my whatever my access to information. So I think and my personal interest. So I think it would be good to have a more even representativeness of positions on these questions from around the world. I think it would be one step forward towards professionalization also of our BIBLIO webpage. But of course, it's open to discussion. But yeah.
Right. No, I do think from time to time we might this will help resolve, let's say, a European bias. Let's not shy away from admitting. For example, Prerna, there may be some very good environmental movements, some or sustainability movements in India, in Bangladesh, in local geographies. Vito will join from Philippines. There is bound to be a certain debate about the floods in Kerala, which were devastating, and the devastation is still going on. So, so I think that's a good focus. Though we must keep in mind that with this sharp focus, we should not lose number one, international. So it shouldn't be the case that people focus so much on their geography that the global issues, doesn't get covered at all. And secondly, the whole distribution or specialization of authors, editors, would also be category wise. For example, somebody is interested in fossil fuels or alternative energies, while somebody else is interested in oceans more than the other. So that's another category, I would say. Another way to, and maybe we should, in that sense, can also assign a horizontal and a vertical sort of focus. Like imagine a grid running left to right and top to bottom, and we can have two foci given to the people. One, let's say, for example, Prerna can be given ocean. Can choose, not given, but Prerna can choose oceans and Indian subcontinent. One as a geography focus, other as a category focus. So even that is a possibility.
Prerna, do you have any thoughts you want to share?
I think it suits well because we are more aware of our current affairs than what is happening on an international level, and goes true for everyone, because we can offer an insight and in-depth analysis of something that happens locally than something that happens on a global level. So fits the agenda well. Like we should focus on a region as well as an interest-wise category, like what suits us more or what we are more comfortable researching and debating about.
Yeah, without, I think we should keep a balance between everything. We shouldn't, because of course we have 40 different topics and there is only 4 or 5 editors. So either we choose 10, but I think I would stay quite open on that. And the geographical focus is not as much as to giving local news, but rather, for example, there was the last COP23, right? It was in Bonn, so it's still, predominantly is a Western world concern mostly, and developing countries are, they haven't organized it at the moment. But for example, at the COP23, Fiji was the chair of the conference on climate mitigation, and that could give rise to some coverage. That would be a good example of how can we dig into the role of Fiji, or more in detail explaining what sea level rise means for Oceania, for that kind of region. What role? What are the opinions of these people? I know of some great Indian scholars who have very strong views. One is a historian, Chakrabarti. Another one is more of a movement leader, like a action leader. Yeah, but that's. I mean, it's. I would keep the focus on international issues, but from a different perspective, so that we don't only have experts from Europe and the United States, but we have experts from Africa, from Asia, from South America, and there are plenty of them. It's just about going and looking for them. And sometimes it's a limitation of language, of course. That's something also we should take into account. I mean, we should, we've been, of course, favoring English as an international means of communication. But we have some entries in Spanish, some in French, very few. We could have entries in Hindi. Why not? I mean,
of course.
Right. So that's just an idea. So that would be also a way of having editors more and more independent. So more and more, so each editor would be chief editor or lead editor for a region or a few topics, whatever we decide. I mean, regions was a matter of simplicity. There can be only so many topics I see more difficult to isolate. And that was the proposal going down from, I think now we have a BIBLIO page, which is, high quality, I think. It's a matter of finishing off the 150 entries that we are behind with. And then we can move on to this new formation of the team, if we all agree on that. So that was the...
I agree on this. Coming back to the point about the pending entries, I would like to point out that Prerna has been the most regular with her commitment. Of late, we didn't see a participation from Thailand and Pallavi, and they told us that they're busy. I hope they catch up. And 50 in the remaining year is I think it's doable. So it'll be great if we can cover up the entire dashboard.
I've slowed down in putting in entries. Now the last one I put in about 15 last week, but these are mostly for, all of them are for Vito. So I've been selecting in a way that it can get an idea of the kind of contents and media we are looking for. But then I was thinking to stop for a while, or maybe I can open a parallel list, a new list, so that we set a deadline to finishing this one, and then we move on to the new mode of working.
Well, to me, that is a sort of a I don't mean it so strongly, but to me, this is a little sad situation that you stop yourself from creating the list. Because we don't have because we have a long, let's say a pipeline. So I think it should not be. I mean, and you should continue to definitely include in the list what you see as relevant. In fact, recently I'm going to post one on the list that Naresh forwarded to me recently. That said, let's try to clear the pipeline. Prerna, if Prerna has been already the most consistent, but whatever you can help with, Prerna will be helpful, and I will sort of personally request Thailand and Pallavi to get back to it, and with Vito's addition, there'll be some more help available.
Yeah, and then I've tried to contact another person, but I didn't get a reply. It's an American fellow friend. There was no reply, so I haven't insisted further after 2 emails. But we have Vito. We need to set up. So Vito Hernandez for Prerna is I met him as a student. So it was a student of some class I gave in Manila a few years back. is very keen on environmental issues, and he also works for an NGO, an activist NGO in the Philippines. So I'm hoping, well, the idea with him, he was more interested in the blogger, so developing the opinion webpage once we have it, or coordinating that. But for the time being, he agreed to help us out with the editorial backlog. So that I think is a way for him to become part of the team and understand what kind of coverage we have, and then also would be a warm up for the blogger later on. So for that we have to organize myself, or with the help of Amit, a short tutorial like the one you had, and then Vito will be joining as well. Yeah, the other, the idea then later on, early next year, possibly depending on financial availability, would be to start the opinion, the blogger. So that would be another product of planthro. I have already a good paper that I would like to put in, so convert it into a blog. And then we have Vito, who has also an entry to propose, and then we can start asking to our endorsers or colleagues around the world, or other people, experts in different fields. And I think that would be, quite a good product as well. So for me, this is about it. I mean, I had 3 points on the bibliographical webpage. So I think we are up and running with a finite product. So we are definitely no longer in the beta version with this second version revised. Now it's a matter of extending it, following the rules of the moment. If we can speed up a little bit and finish off the list by the end of the year, then we can move on to a team that is more structured, with each person responsible for an area. And then the last item was the integration of Vito Hernandez in the next couple of weeks. And that's from my side. This is all I had in mind for today. But of course, the agenda is open for any additions.
Okay, so can I initiate discussion on something that I had in mind and I discussed with Amit Bhaiya last week or last week?
Yes,
so this is regarding the news section. Like how do we import news material in the sense the recent news briefings about the recent research advances, and how do we bring in what should be the source of news, number one, and what kind of science news should we incorporate, because we feel that news will initiate discussion, would invite engagement from experts, and we can build a comment and blog and opinion section from whatever recent advances are made in science. And that way we also stay more relevant and up to date with the current affairs. And we also are able to tweet about it on social media.
Yeah. So from my side, what
since I had, sorry, Andrea, but to add to it, I think one question we also spoke about, Prerna, is what should be the frequency? Since news is a current affair, it is also changing very fast. So what should, how much should we follow a news? For example, if if there is a current affair, should we follow it on a week by week basis, or month by month basis, or how? Especially for Biblio, Andrea, especially for Biblio. I mean, on Facebook, we can be more active and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I tell you my strategy on the news that we have. I mean, sometimes it's just, I select a book, I see there is a prize given to the author, and that becomes an item of news. So instead of having a single entry with a book, I have two. One is the book, and the other one is the assignment of the prize to that person. So that would be a piece of news, in my view. The other one is that I follow basically two references. One is science. So they have I receive every 2 weeks the full list of contents from Science, the journal. And this is where you get basically top ranking stuff. I mean, when you find them on New York Times or somewhere else in newspaper, they've normally come out in Science first, right? So they go and pick their news from there mostly. So Science, Nature, these are the two reference reviews journals for the kind of information that we are looking for mostly, but not also political. I mean, if there is like when Donald Trump decides to go against the climate bill by Barack Obama, it comes out in the news, right? Even on Science. So this is my main references, and then I have and then I receive newsletter from New York Times. So New York Times has a climate newsletter, and this is also another source of information for me on news about climate. So the way I've been working, because of course the newspaper world is huge, so I try to go to the top of the pyramid, if you want, and see what their key scientific references are, and these are Science and Nature. I have my own. I mean, I pay yearly to get this Science. It's not a free. It's not an open journal, so you need to get. I mean, you need to pay to get it. I'm not sure if we could pay as planthro and have multiple access, like a Word, a single user and username and password for all of the editors. I don't know how that works. Yeah, I'm not sure how that works. But yeah, that's my strategy basically. But of course, this is because otherwise we get lost. If we need to read all the Indian newspapers, American, Europeans, then. But I know for a fact that everything that is related to climate science is mostly comes out of reviews, journals like Science and Nature. So that's my strategy to integrate the news that you see in the blogger in the BIBLIO, planthro BIBLIO.
Fair enough. I think that should suffice.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I mean, it doesn't exclude that if you see anything, important in a newspaper, then we should report it.
Correct.
Yeah. And then other news, but this is more like conferences. But whenever there is a big event, like a new COPE or a new report coming out, I mean, this is also a kind of news, fresh material. Yeah.
So basically, we are saying that first of all, top of the pyramid news, in the sense, best news sources.
Yeah.
And then also, I think subscribing personally to a newsletter is a very good idea. For example, Guardian, I know, is an independent sort of journal, allows for a very specific topic-wise newsletter. So you could, if you're interested in cinema, for example, and for that matter, Japanese cinema, you could, they have a very, very modular. So with that as an example, maybe some of us can personally, according to our choice and taste, and can subscribe to some top of the pyramid newsletters, and when we receive the news, we can shortlist the relevant ones for BIBLIO. And regarding regional news, I would not discount that, but let me wait for the time when editors get a local focus, and at that point of time, maybe some local news can also be covered better than now. So, for example, if Andre said New York Times, but we also spoke earlier about somebody covering Africa or somebody covering India. And at that point of time, somebody is dedicated to doing that. I think some Indian, again, top of the pyramid newspapers, good source, good journalism, can perhaps be covered better than now.
Yeah. So Prerna, I think one first step to do here could be to select a number of reference newspapers if we want, like New York Times, The Guardian, Indian Times, or others that you think are relevant, Le Monde or whatever we choose. I don't know if you can do that kind of survey and see which of them have a climate newsletter or some sort of newsletter that we could be interested in subscribing, and then we could again split the task between different editors. So each editor could subscribe to two different one or two of these newsletters and be in charge of reporting important news from there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important that we keep a list of. So I mean, I have Science because I use that one, but we can have. I have the New York Times climate newsletter, but we can make an actual list, like a log with the different newsletters that we could make use of. I know I received one from the SDSN, which is Sustainable Development Network. Sustainable Development Goal Network. I receive a newsletter from them. I receive a newsletter from the Stockholm Resilience Center. So this is the way I get ahead of news, basically. But of course, we can extend that as long as I have support, I mean, yeah, I can keep track of 3 or 4, but more than that, it becomes noise.
I agree. So maybe I could recommend a few widely read publications in India, which also cover global science news. And you may see if they are of any relevance to us.
Yeah, I mean, I trust your judgment on that. You see, I think by now what kind of coverage we have. So of course, I wouldn't be interested in something very specific about flies unless that's connected to unless that's connected to some global changes that we are causing, for example, the extinction of blue flies or because of CO2 emissions or something like that.
Correct. Or maybe we could have an Indian perspective on an internationally renowned research, probably.
Yeah.
An Indian scientist talking about global research. So we could perhaps do that.
Yeah. No, and I'm aware of Indian scholars who do have a relevant voice. They are often not based in India, so that's the other thing. When you analyze who is who, there is the original place of birth, and then there is where you live and work. So many Indian scholars work at Columbia University or Harvard or wherever, and it is from there. So if you take an institutional standpoint, they are Americans, but if it depends again what you put the focus on.
Right. We are 31 minutes into the meeting, and I suggest we. I want to encourage all the discussion, but let's also keep this in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good with the agenda. I think we rose important questions, and I think the priority is really to distribute the work to editors over the next few months of 2018, so that from New Year we can have more and more independent editorial work, so that it doesn't all come out from a single person picking the information, but each editor can cover topics and regions of their choice. And that's the most important transformation that we have to make towards professionalization of planthro BIBLIO.
Right. I have just 2 points, basically 2 announcements, or let's say two thoughts. One is the wiki. You would follow on the Google Group News newsletters, updates that I'm working with Amit Onkare on planthro wiki. And I think one of the good decisions we took was that we will take the planthro biblio base template and modify that. That actually is a lot of effort, and it also benefits us in a way that of course we will do many customizations on the base theme to make it look to make it work for wiki. But underline, I mean, at the end of it, they will look like the product from the same company or the same
Yeah.
organization. Otherwise, if we had chosen something else, we would have taken effort to converge them. Right now, it's converged already, and we're trying to just specialize the features and so on. So I think that was a good decision. Also saves a lot of effort and as a result cost. So you will hear more, and if you have any suggestions, please feel free. But the newsletters, the news group will keep you posted. But reach out to me if you have any suggestions or questions. The other thing I wanted to just say is something that I always say. Um, Please look for more people who can join Planthro Biblio, especially. I think we can do with more editors. And by now, the editors, the insiders know the motivation, the quality, the commitment to professionalism. So I hope it'll be an enriching experience for anybody who's like-minded, and we will benefit definitely, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
starting, but it's not easy.
Yeah, the same. It's never easy. It's never easy, but I think we have to kind of come out of our shell to.
Yeah, I think it would be very easy as soon as we can afford paying, even if it's symbolic, but a token per entry or something like this. Of course, it will become more interesting to students or people who are can benefit from some extra.
Right. And I think our outreach program is going to be quite useful there, in the sense that at some point we can announce that we are looking for a volunteer and might get one. I don't know exactly. I don't have exact experience on Facebook, but
Recruiting.
theoretically we have that outreach, right? So that improves the chances, but nothing like uh, asking somebody whom you trust and like. And it's also an opportunity to actually make a working relationship with a person whom you anyway would like to keep in touch, and that's what I like here the most.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so that's it from my side. Prerna, over to you. Andrea, I'll let you close it.
I'm good. I can close unless Prerna has another item.
I'm almost done, and I think I should be able to work on the news portals over the next few weeks, and then I'll get back to you.
Wonderful. Great. All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Okay.
Have a good
Thank you.
weekend.
Thanks a lot.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye bye.